Hey, it's Steve. We're going to talk about some of my favorite type of jigs to fish with. That's right, flipping and pitching jigs. First of all, you need to know the difference between a flipping jig and a pitching jig because they are two completely different jigs. Okay, here's your flipping jig. Big hook. Here's your pitching jig. Not quite so big a hook. You see, there's a real problem out there that people think they're flipping when they're really pitching. The truth is, not many people really flip anymore. Now, for modern concerns, we're going to go with which jig you're going to pick depends upon the cover you're fishing. So if you're skipping a jig around docks, around pilings or something like that, well, you're probably looking at getting a pitching jig. If you're fishing a jig in really heavy cover, if it's in grass, if it's laydowns and stuff like that where you're going to use a minimum of 20-pound line, flipping jig. Great. What size? Well, for pitching jig, I'll go as light as 5/16 of an ounce up to close to a half. Now, why are you going to do that, 5/16 of an ounce? Well, the answer is really simple. If the bottom is super soft and I'm just going to send that jig down and it's going to get buried in the muck, I don't want that to happen. So I'll go with a jig that falls a little bit slower. Great. What about skirt colors? Well, I keep it super simple. I fish about basically 2, but we're going to call it 3 colors. I'll fish black and blue. Duh, who doesn't? I'll fish some type of green pumpkin. Okay, who doesn't? Now here's a special color I have that I don't talk about much. It's kind of a black, brown, and purple. It's called Dirty Matte Brown. It's a Dirty Jigs exclusive color. Fantastic color, especially when everybody else is throwing black and blue, or the water's kind of like, well, it's almost black and blue color, but not quite. Black, blue, and brown get you a lot of bites. Now, let me add that I also fish mini jigs flipping. And the mini jig that I fish a lot is the Strike King Bitsy Flip. It's got a nice hook. And I'd put it in the pitching category. I wouldn't use it on 20 is a little heavy, probably 15. But when you want to really scale back and get yourself a bite, not a bad option to have. Okay. Do I use anybody's jigs in particular? Well, I happen to like dirty jigs. They're probably my favorite factory brand jig right now. And I kind of go between 2 jigs. One would be the, let's see, which one is it? It's this one right here. Scott Canterbury flipping jig. And the Luke Clausen pitching jig. Both excellent jigs. Now, you could buy Strike King or whoever you want. Everybody makes a pretty darn good jig these days. Now, what really happens is the choice that's really important is your trailer. I can't tell you how important the trailer is when you're flipping and pitching because a lot of your bites come on a fall. And the fall rate is important. If it falls too slow, and fish are not active. And that's something that people don't realize. The more active fish are, the slower a fall you can get away with. But a lot of times you have to cause a reaction strike. That means that It's like shoving a pizza in front of your face and pulling it away. You might turn it down the first time, but the second time you realize that's a pizza, you're going to eat it. You're going to take a bite out of it. It's the same with a bass. So a lot of times you want a jig that falls fairly fast. So when I'm flipping in heavy cover, probably minimum of 3/8 and up to 5/8 of an ounce, although 3/8 and a half is probably what I choose most. So in part one, we talked about how your trailer speed is affected by the trailer, or the jig speed is affected by the trailer. Now, I know everybody likes this guy right here, okay? Strike King, Rage Bug, or this is the Rage Chunk, or the Rage Craw, but this is the chunk version. Gives me a little less plastic overall, so it falls a little faster. Now, there are options other than the Rage Bug that still give you the flailing arms, but it doesn't offer as much resistance. Because remember, if you're going to use this chunk and you still want a fast fall, you need to upsize at least one size jig. So this little guy, smaller arms, still gives you good action. It's from Missile Baits. It's the, where is it here? Missile. Don't know where you are. Oh, well. It's like the Crawdaddy or something like that. Okay? Then, from Yum, we've got the Christie Craw. Again, it's got the movement in the arms, or claws, or whatever you want to call them, but it doesn't offer as much water resistance as this is. So, you can pretty much still get away with the same jig weight and the same, very close to the same fall with something that doesn't offer as much resistance. Then it's always good to have different trailers. What else do I like? Well, sometimes, probably 40 or 50% of the time, I'm going to use a trailer that has little or no action on a fall. Especially if I'm trying to throw something that's kind of streamlined and I want to penetrate cover. One of my picks is the Packet Chunk. Another one, straight up Strike King rodent deal. Or, and I gotta say, I love this chunk. Okay, I do love this chunk. It's a Zoom Super Chunk. Now you can use the Super Chunk or the Super Chunk Junior. How about colors? Well, I do keep my trailer colors pretty simple. Some form of black, some form of blue, some form of green pumpkin, and I particularly like Junebug. Junebug is a great contrast color to put on a flipping or pitching jig. It gives you good contrast. It gives you, it lets you bridge between two different colors. And that's really important because your straight up jig color might not be quite right, especially when the water's a little clearer. So, here's the deal. What rod am I going to use? Well, luckily, you can fish a jig on just about any medium heavy 7-foot or 7.5-foot rod. I like a longer rod for fishing a jig. Minimum 15-pound test. Most of the time if I'm fishing heavy cover, it'll be 20 or 25-pound fluorocarbon, not braid. But wait a minute, if you're fishing heavy cover, why not braid? Braid, you get 65-pound braid. It's stronger than all get out, and it's low diameter and it's strong. Well, here's the problem with fishing around wood cover with braid. A lot of times if you hook a fish, the braid digs into the wood. You get snagged, the braid digs into the wood. Now, grass is a whole nother animal. Grass fishing, I'm almost 100% using braid when I'm, quote, flipping or pitching. So, do I use the exact same jigs? Well, to some extent, yes. If the grass is light, I can get away with a standard flipping or pitching jig. If the grass gets thicker, I'll go to something like this 3/4 ounce, more of a bullet-shaped head. That's right, bullet-shaped head. It'll come through the grass better, it'll penetrate the grass better. Now, the important thing is you want a quick fall through that grass, because grass is not, it's not homogeneous. It's not, just grass, okay? And I'm a bass and I'm in the grass and the jig falls by and I can't see it, okay? There are holes in the grass underneath. There are holes in the grass you could pitch to. There are mats that you could pitch to. So, what you need is a jig that's going to make it through at a good clip. That's why we go to a much heavier jig. And, well, the braid, it cuts the grass. It's like a weed whacker down there. I've pulled some really nice fish out of some really thick stuff, and, between grass and pad stems and stuff like that, there was just stuff floating on the water, just like collateral damage afterwards. So, that's flipping and pitching jigs. Up next, casting jigs. Like your regular casting jig. And the football jig. Football jig is special. It really is. It falls into a category on its own, and it is a bass catcher. Till next time, I'm Steve.